The alarm cuts through the silence of the room, but it does not signal the start of a new opportunity. It signals a return of the weight. You know this feeling intimately, perhaps better than you know the face of your closest friend. It is that heavy, suffocating pressure that sits squarely on your chest before your feet even touch the floor. There is a frantic energy beneath your skin, a low-level hum of anxiety that whispers that something is wrong, or that something is about to go wrong. Even though the room is quiet and the world outside is still asleep, you lie there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, scanning your mind for a reason. Why do I feel this way? Is it the project at work? Is it that awkward conversation from 3 days ago? Is it the fear that I am drifting through life without an anchor? The mind, in its desperate attempt to make sense of sensation, begins to attach stories to the feeling. It frantically searches for a hook to hang this anxiety on, and usually it finds one. But the truth, the one that is harder to admit, is that often there is no reason at all. The heaviness is just there, an unwelcome tenant in the house of your body, demanding rent in the form of your... Yet, how many hours were you taught how to handle the sudden, crushing wave of loneliness? How many classes did you take on how to process the sting of failure so that it becomes fuel rather than poison? We are emotionally illiterate in a world that demands high emotional intelligence. We are trying to navigate the complex highways of relationships and careers on a tricycle. It is no wonder we keep crashing. This journey we are about to undertake is a process of re-education. We are going to dismantle the old operating system, the one driven by fear and survival, and install a new one. This new system recognizes the biological reality of your emotions, but refuses to be ruled by them. We will look at the ego, that loud, insecure voice in your head that demands to be right, to be admired, and to be safe, and we will see it for what it is, a frightened child, not a wise master. We will explore the profound connection between your physical body and your emotional state, realizing that sometimes the despair you feel is not a spiritual crisis, but simply a lack of sleep or a sedentary lifestyle. We will examine the feedback loops of your thoughts, seeing how the words you speak to yourself in the privacy of your mind become the architecture of your reality. But before we can build, we must clear the ground. You must be willing to let go of the story that you are a victim of your feelings. This is the hardest part. There's a strange comfort in victimhood. If we are victims of our chemistry or our past, then we are not responsible. We can sit in the dark and wait for someone to come and turn on the light. But no one is coming. The light switch is in your hand. This realization is terrifying, yes, but it is also the only path to true freedom. If you have the power to make yourself miserable, and you clearly do, given how skilled you are at replaying past humiliations and forecasting future disasters, then you also have the power to make yourself strong. The energy is the same. It is only the direction that changes. As we move through these chapters, I want you to listen not just with your logical mind, but with your intuition. You will hear things that challenge your current worldview. You may feel resistance. You may hear a voice saying, "That's easy for you to say, but my situation is different." That voice is the survival mechanism trying to maintain the status quo. It loves the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. It prefers a known hell to an unknown heaven. Acknowledge that voice, thank it for trying to keep you safe, and then gently set it aside. We are going into the unknown. We are going to dissect the anatomy of your suffering so that you can see the gears and pulleys behind the curtain. Think of the times in your life when you have felt truly alive, the moments when the noise in your head went silent and you were purely present. Maybe it was watching a sunset that set the horizon on fire, or the moment of exhaustion after a long run, or the flow state of deep work. In those moments, the survival mechanism was suspended. You were not worrying about the future or regretting the past. You were here. That state is accessible to you more often than you think. It is not a lottery ticket you win. It is a muscle you build. The work of mastering your emotions is the work of clearing the debris that blocks that natural state of presence. The stakes could not be higher. Your life is happening right now. It is ticking away, second by second, while you are lost in the maze of your emotions. Every moment you spend paralyzed by anxiety or consumed by resentment is a moment you are not truly living. You are merely existing in a defensive crouch. Imagine looking back on your life from the vantage point of your final days. Will you regret Consider two of our ancient ancestors. Let's call the first one Happy Harry. Harry is an optimist. He wakes up in the morning, stretches, and admires the sunrise. When he sees a rustle in the tall grass, he thinks, "Oh, that's probably just a cute rabbit or the wind." He wanders away from the tribe to smell the flowers. He is content. Now, consider the second ancestor, anxious Arthur. Arthur is a nervous wreck. He wakes up scanning the perimeter. When he sees a rustle in the grass, his heart hammers against his ribs, his cortisol spikes, and he thinks, "That is a lion, and it is going to kill me." He freezes, he hides, or he runs. Here is the brutal truth of natural selection. Happy Harry got eaten. He did not survive long enough to pass on his genes. His optimism, while pleasant for him, was a fatal flaw in a hostile world. Anxious Arthur, on the other hand, survived. He survived because he treated every shadow as a threat. He survived because he was never satisfied, always looking for more food, more security, better shelter. You are the descendant of anxious Arthur. You are the great-great-grandchild of the paranoid, the worried, and the fearful. You carry his genetic legacy in every neuron of your brain. This is why your mind has a negativity bias. Scientists have found that the brain reacts more strongly and quickly to negative stimuli than to positive ones. It takes 5 positive interactions to outweigh the emotional impact of 1 negative interaction. This isn't a character flaw. It is a security system. Your brain is like a smoke detector. A smoke detector that goes off when there's no fire is annoying, but a smoke detector that fails to go off when there's a fire is fatal. Therefore, your brain is calibrated to be hypersensitive. It would rather be wrong 1,000 times about a threat that isn't there, a false positive, than be wrong once about a threat that is there, a false negative. In the prehistoric savanna, this calibration was perfect. It kept us alive. But fast forward to the 21st century. We have paved over the wilderness. We have built climate-controlled boxes to live in. We have eliminated almost all immediate physical threats. The tiger is gone, but the machine, the brain, is still scanning for it. And because the brain is a problem-solving engine, if it cannot find a problem, it will create one. This is a survival trap. The machinery designed to navigate a world of scarcity and danger is now trying to navigate a world of abundance and safety, and it is malfunctioning. The tiger has been replaced by the angry email. The poisonous berry has been replaced by the passive-aggressive comment. The fear of being kicked out of the tribe, which meant certain death in the wild, has been replaced by the fear of public speaking or not getting enough likes on a post. The biological reaction, however, is exactly the same. When your boss frowns at you, your body dumps the same cocktail of stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, into your bloodstream that your ancestor felt when staring down a predator. Your heart rates increase. Your digestion shuts down. Your muscles tense up. You are ready to fight for your life. But you are sitting in an ergonomic chair in a quiet office. This trapped energy has nowhere to go. You cannot spear your boss. You cannot run out of the building screaming. So the energy turns toxic. It churns inside you, manifesting as chronic anxiety, sleeplessness, and that low-level hum of dread that permeates modern existence. You are a biological warrior with no war to fight, so you declare war on yourself. Furthermore, this survival mechanism explains our insatiable desire for more. In a world where food was scarce, the urge to gorge on high-calorie foods was survival advantage. If you found a beehive, you ate as much honey as possible because you didn't know when you'd eat again. Today, we are surrounded by infinite calories, yet the ancient drive remains. We eat when we aren't hungry, but it goes beyond food. We hoard money, we hoard status, we hoard possessions. The brain says, get more just in case. It tells you, once I get that promotion, then I can relax. Once I buy that house, then I will be safe. But have you noticed that the satisfaction never lasts? You get the promotion, and for a day or two, you feel great. But then the feeling fades. The anxiety returns. The brain immediately recalibrates and sets a new target. This is known as the Hedonic Treadmill. From an evolutionary standpoint, permanent satisfaction is dangerous. If an animal is permanently satisfied, it stops hunting, it stops building, it stops striving. It becomes vulnerable. So, nature played a cruel trick on us. It gave us the promise of happiness to keep us moving, but it denied us the permanence of happiness to keep us alive. The brain uses dopamine not as a reward for having achieved something, but as a carrot on a stick to make you pursue it. Once you catch the carrot, the dopamine cuts off, and the brain dangles a new carrot. This constant state of not enough is not a spiritual failing on your part. It is the engine of your biology. When you feel that gnawing sense of dissatisfaction, it is simply your survival software running its default program. The problem arises because we misinterpret this signal. We think the dissatisfaction is a message that our lives are wrong. We think, if I just change my job or my partner or my city, then this feeling will go away. We rearrange the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, not realizing that the ship itself, the unmanaged mind, is the issue. We must also confront the role of the ego in this survival trap, though we will explore it deeper in the next chapter. The ego is the part of you that believes it is separate from everything else. In the wild, you had to protect your physical body. Today, since physical threats are rare, the defensive mechanism shifts to protecting your conceptual self, your reputation, your opinions, your identity. When someone disagrees with your political view, your brain registers it as an attack. You feel a flare of rage. Why? Because of the primitive mind, being wrong or losing status in a hierarchy could lead to ostracization, and ostracization meant death. You are defending your opinion on the internet with the ferocity of a mother bear defending her cubs because, to your amygdala, the stakes feel identical. This is the tragedy of the unobserved mind. We are living in a hallucination where minor social frictions are elevated to life or death struggles. We burn up our vital energy fighting phantoms. We exhaust ourselves defending borders that don't exist. And in doing so, we miss the actual life that is happening right in front of us. We are so busy scanning the horizon for the next threat or the next hit of dopamine that we never actually taste our coffee, or look into the eyes of our children, or feel the wind on our skin. We are physically present, but mentally, we are always in the future worrying or in the past regretting. So what is the solution? Is it to abandon civilization and return to the caves? No, the solution is awareness. The first step to escaping the prison is realizing that you are in one. You must accept that your brain is not your friend. It is a tool. It is a paranoid, outdated, hyperactive survival tool. It is like having a bodyguard who is constantly tackling the pizza delivery guy because he thinks the pepperoni is a bomb. You don't fire the bodyguard. You need him for the rare occasions when there actually is a threat, but you stop listening to his every command. You stop taking his panic seriously. When you feel that familiar wave of anxiety rising because you haven't checked your phone in 10 minutes, you can pause. You can say to yourself, I see what is happening. My ancient brain thinks I am being cut off from the tribe. It is sending me a panic signal to force me to check in. But I am safe. I am sitting on my couch. There is no tiger. In that moment of recognition, you create a gap, a tiny sliver of space between the stimulus and the response. In that gap lies your freedom. We must also redefine what happiness means to us. If we define happiness as a state of constant, euphoric pleasure, we are destined to fail because our biology will not support it. We will spend our lives chasing a high that is chemically impossible to sustain. But if we define happiness differently, as a state of deep acceptance, of being at peace with the changing weather of our emotions, of finding meaning even in the struggle, then it becomes attainable. We can stop fighting our nature and start working with it. This chapter is a foundation of everything that follows. You cannot master your emotions if you are judging them. If you feel anxious and then judge yourself for being anxious, you are pouring gasoline on the fire. You are adding a secondary layer of psychological pain to a primary physiological reaction. But if you can look at your anxiety with a detached eye of scientist, if you can say, there is a survival mechanism doing its job, then you strip the emotion of its power. It becomes a sensation, not a definition. It becomes a wave passing through the ocean, not the ocean itself. You are fighting a battle against millions of years of evolution. It is not an easy fight. The neural pathways of fear and scarcity are deep, wide canyons in your mind, worn down by the river of 1,000 generations. The pathway of contentment is a faint trail to the overgrown brush. To take the trail requires effort. It requires vigilance. It requires the courage to go against the grain of your own biology. But the reward is the only thing worth having, the reclamation of your own life. As we move forward, remember this: the voice in your head that tells you are not enough, that you are in danger, that you need more to be happy, that voice is a liar. It is a well-meaning liar, trying to keep you safe, but a liar nonetheless. It is anxious Arthur whispering from the grave. You can thank him for his concern. You can honor the fact that his paranoia is the reason you are alive today. And then, with a gentle firmness, you can tell him to sit down. You have a life to live, and you cannot live it if you are constantly preparing to die. We are now going to turn our gaze to the entity that amplifies the survival signal into a deafening noise: the ego. If the survival instinct is the match, the ego is the forest fire. It is the construct that takes a simple biological impulse and twists it into a complex narrative of suffering. But to dismantle it, we must first see it. And to see it, we must step out of the trap of the survival mind. You have taken the first step. You have looked at the bars of the cage. Now let us find the key. If the survival mechanism is the hardware that keeps your heart beating and your adrenaline pumping, then the ego is the operating system that interprets your reality. And, unfortunately for most of us, it is an operating system riddled with bugs, glitches, and malicious code. It is the invisible narrator of your life, a voice that never sleeps, never stops judging, and never truly feels safe. It is the entity that wakes up with you in the morning and immediately begins the work of rebuilding the walls of I. It whispers to you who you are, who you should be, who has wronged you, and what you must do to defend your territory. But the territory it defends is not made of land or soil. It is made of concepts, opinions, and a fragile sense of self-importance. We tend to think of the ego as arrogance. We imagine the brash CEO shouting at his subordinates, or the narcissist who cannot stop talking about themselves. But that is only the ego in its loudest, most obvious dress. The ego is just as present in the shy person who is terrified of speaking up because they fear being judged. It is just as present in the self-deprecating martyr who constantly tells everyone how much they sacrifice. The ego is not just pride. It is a fundamental belief that you are separate from the world, and that this separate self must be protected, enhanced, and validated at all costs. It is the part of you that says, I am this body, I am this job title, I am this bank account, I am this history of pain. Imagine for a moment that you are walking down a busy street. Someone bumps into you hard, spilling your coffee onto your shirt. In a fraction of a second, before you even have a conscious thought, a surge of heat rises in your chest. You spin around, ready to confront them. Watch where you're going, you might shout. The person mumbles an apology and rushes off. Physically, you are fine. A little wet, perhaps, but uninjured. Yet, for the next hour, you are seething. You replay the incident in your mind. You think about how rude people are these days. You think about how that person didn't respect you. You think about how you would have handled it if you were them. Why does this minor event occupy so much space in your mind? It is because the ego was bruised. The ego interprets the bump not as an accident, but as a personal affront. It says, how dare they do this to me? The me is the center of the ego's universe, and anything that disrupts the me is an act of war. This constant need to defend the me is the primary source of our psychological exhaustion. We walk through life carrying a heavy shield, always raised, always ready for an arrow. We scan conversations for insults. We scan faces for disapproval. We are like medieval kings sitting on wobbly thrones, terrified that at any moment a usurper will come and strip us of our crown. And the tragedy is that the crown is made of paper. The identity we fight so hard to protect is a construct. It is a story we tell ourselves. Consider the story of a man we will call Julian. Julian is a mid-level manager at a corporate firm. He prides himself on being the smartest guy in the room. This is the pillar upon which his ego rests. He has built his entire sense of worth around his intellect and his ability to solve problems faster than anyone else. One afternoon, during a strategy meeting, Julian proposes a plan. He lays it out with his usual confidence. A junior employee, a young woman who has only been there for a month, raises her hand, and gently points out a significant logical flaw in his proposal. She is right. The flaw is obvious once she points it out. In a healthy state of mind, Julian would simply say, "Oh, good catch. Thank you. Let's adjust the plan." But Julian is not operating from a healthy state. He is operating from his ego. When she speaks, Julian does not hear a helpful correction. He hears a gunshot. His heart races. His palms sweat. The ego screams, "She is attacking you. She is trying to humiliate you. If you admit you are wrong, you are no longer the smartest guy. You are nothing." So Julian doubles down. He argues. He uses complex jargon to confuse the issue. He belittles the junior employee's experience. He turns a simple logistical discussion into a battlefield. He leaves the meeting victorious in his own mind. He didn't admit fault, but he feels hollow, agitated, and isolated. His colleagues now view him as defensive and rigid. He has won the battle for his ego, but he has lost the war for connection and respect. This is the tyranny of the ego. It would rather be right than be happy. It would rather be right than be loved. It isolates us behind walls of judgment. When we judge others, the ego feels a temporary hit of superiority. "Look at how badly they are dressed," it whispers. "Look at how poorly they parent their children." In that moment of judgment, the ego feels big. It feels safe. "I am not like them," it says. "I am better." But this high is short-lived, and it comes with a terrible price: loneliness. You cannot truly connect with someone you are looking down on. You cannot love someone you are constantly assessing. The ego creates a world of us versus them, where them is always a threat or a disappointment. But the ego doesn't just judge others. It turns that same vicious gaze inward. This is the shadow side of the self-importance coin. If you identify with your achievements, you must also identify with your failures. If you are your job, then who are you when you lose it? If you are your beauty, who are you when you age? The ego attaches itself to transient things: status, looks, money, relationships. And because those things are by nature unstable, the ego is permanently insecure. It knows deep down that its foundation is sand. So it creates a voice of internal criticism to whip you into shape. "You're not working hard enough," it says. "You're getting fat. Everyone is going to find out you're a fraud." This inner critic is not trying to help you. It is trying to protect the image of the me by frantically trying to control every variable. Let us look deeper at the mechanism of attachment. The ego is a hoarder. It collects labels and sticks them to your soul. You are not just a human being. You become a Democrat or a Republican, a vegan, a patriot, a mother, a victim. These labels are not just descriptions. They become rigid suits of armor. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with someone whose ego is entirely wrapped up in their political identity? You cannot have a discussion about policy. Every word feels like a personal attack on their existence. If you challenge their candidate, you're not challenging a politician. You are challenging them. They react with the same ferocity as if you had slapped them in the face. This is identification. The ego has merged the self with the idea. To kill the idea is to kill the self. This mechanism explains why we cling to pain. It seems counterintuitive. Why would anyone want to hold on to sadness or anger? But for the ego, a painful identity is better than no identity at all. Consider the person who has been wronged in a divorce. Years have passed, yet they still tell the story of the betrayal to anyone who will listen. They rehearse the anger daily. Why? Because being the victim has become who they are. It gives them a sense of righteousness. It gives them a reason for their unhappiness that is outside of themselves. If they let go of the anger, they would have to face the terrifying void of the unknown. They would have to answer the question, who am I if I am not the person who was cheated on? The ego prefers a familiar misery to the empty unknown. So, how do we dismantle this tyrant? We do not kill the ego. To try to kill the ego is just the ego playing a new game called, I am the most spiritual person here. The ego loves to co-opt spiritual growth. It will wear the mask of the humble student just as easily as the mask of the arrogant boss. No, we do not kill it. We simply turn on the light. We observe it. The practice is one of disidentification. It is the realization that you are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears the voice. This is a subtle but earth-shattering shift. When you are lost in thought, you are the thought. When you get angry, you are the anger. But the moment you can say, I am noticing that I am having an angry thought, you have created a separation. You have stepped out of the river and onto the bank. You are watching the water flow, but you are no longer drowning in it. Imagine your mind as a sky. The ego is the clouds. Sometimes the clouds are dark and stormy. Sometimes they are white and fluffy. But the sky is never clouds. The sky is the space that allows the clouds to exist. You are that space. When you rest in that awareness, the ego loses its grip. Julian, in that meeting, could have accessed the space. He could have felt the flare of defensive anger, noticed it, my ego is threatened, and let it pass. He could have then responded from the clear sky of his intelligence rather than the stormy cloud of his insecurity. This is not a purely philosophical exercise. It is the only path to true emotional resilience. If you are nothing but your ego, you are a leaf in the wind. Every compliment lifts you up, and every criticism slams you down. You are completely at the mercy of how the world treats you. Your emotional state is outsourced to the opinions of strangers. But if you are the observer, you are the mountain. The winds of praise and blame blow around you, but they do not move you. You know who you are, independent of the external validation. This shift changes everything. It changes how you relate to failure. To the ego, failure is death. It is proof of unworthiness. To the observer, failure is simply data. It is feedback. I tried this and it didn't work. Interesting. Let me try something else. The emotional charge is gone. The shame is evaporated. You become dangerous in the best possible way. You become fearless. A person who does not need to protect their image is unstoppable. They can take risks. They can speak the truth. They can be vulnerable because they have nothing to lose. They know that their true value is not on the table. But be warned, the ego is cunning. As you begin to practice this awareness, the ego will fight back. It will tell you that if you let go of your anger, people will walk all over you. It will tell you that if you stop comparing yourself to others, you will lose your ambition and become lazy. These are lies. Let us look at the shadow mentioned in the title of this chapter. The shadow is everything the ego refuses to accept about itself. If your ego says, I am a nice person, it will repress your capacity for anger or selfishness. It will shove those traits into the dark basement of your psyche. But those traits do not die. They fester. They turn into passive aggression. They explode in moments of stress. The work of emotional mastery requires us to integrate the shadow. It requires us to look at the parts of ourselves we are ashamed of and say, I see you. You are part of the human experience too. When we stop hiding from our own darkness, the ego loses its leverage. It can no longer blackmail us with the fear of being found out. There is nothing to find out. We are whole. You are walking a path that few dare to tread. Most people live their entire lives trapped in the monologue of the ego, reacting blindly to every button that is pushed, die without ever having met their true selves. They are actors who have forgotten they are in a play, taking the script so seriously that they suffer real wounds from fake swords. You are waking up on the stage. You are looking out into the audience. You are realizing that the mask you are wearing can be taken off. The next time you feel that flash of defensiveness, or that pang of jealousy, or that wave of superiority, pause. Take a breath. Smile at it. Say to yourself, I see you, ego. I know you are trying to protect me, but I don't need protection right now. Then, choose a different response. Choose a response that comes from the quiet, still center of your being. It will feel strange at first. It will feel naked. But in that nakedness, you will find a power you never knew you possessed. You will find the power to be real. And in a world of masks, reality is the ultimate superpower. Now that we have exposed the mind, the hardware of survival and the software of the ego, we must ascend from the head into the body. For emotions are not just abstract thoughts. They are physical events. They are chemistry, posture, and breath. You cannot master your mind while ignoring the vessel that carries it. In the next chapter, We will explore the physiology of feeling and how the simple act of sleep or the way you stand can dictate your happiness more than any philosophy ever could. The body keeps the score, and it is time we learn how to read it. We have spent the last 2 chapters inhabiting the high towers of the mind. We have dissected the ancient wiring of your survival instincts and exposed the deceptive whispers of the ego. But now we must ascend. We must leave the abstract realm of thoughts and theories and land firmly in the concrete reality of flesh, bone, and blood. We must talk about the vessel. There is a fundamental error we make when we try to solve our emotional problems. We treat them as purely psychological events. When we feel depressed, we search for the reason in our life story. We ask, why am I sad? Is it my job? Is it my relationship? Is it my childhood trauma? We treat the mind as a floating entity, separate from the biological machine that powers it. This is a dangerous delusion. You are not a ghost in a machine. You are the machine itself. And often, the despair you feel is not a spiritual crisis. It is not a sign that your life is falling apart. It is simply a sign that your machinery is running on fumes. Imagine you are driving a high-performance sports car. Suddenly, the engine starts to sputter, the steering becomes sluggish, and the check engine light flashes red. You would pull over and start psychoanalyzing the car. You wouldn't ask the car if it had a difficult relationship with its father. You wouldn't try to think positive thoughts to make the engine run smoother. You would check the fuel. You would check the oil. You would check the tires. Yet, when our own engines sputter, when we feel irritable, anxious, or flat, we immediately jump to complex psychological explanations while ignoring the fuel and the oil. We try to solve a biological problem with a philosophical solution. The foundation of your emotional reality is not your philosophy. It is your physiology. And the cornerstone of that physiology is sleep. In our hyperproductive, hustle culture society, sleep has been rebranded as a weakness. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. I'll sleep when I'm dead, we say, fueled by caffeine and ambition. But this deprivation comes with a terrifying emotional price tag. Sleep is not merely a time when the body shuts down. It is a time when the brain washes itself. During deep sleep, the glymphatic system opens up and flushes out the metabolic waste that accumulates during the day. Essentially, the neurochemical trash. When you deny yourself this process, you're waking up with a brain full of toxic debris. But the impact is more specific than just feeling tired. Sleep deprivation targets the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for the fight-or-flight response. When you are well-rested, the prefrontal cortex, the logical, adult part of your brain, keeps a firm hand on the amygdala. It says, calm down, that's not a threat. But when you are sleep-deprived, that connection is severed. The prefrontal cortex goes offline, and the amygdala runs wild. This means that your interpretation of reality changes. This is crucial. The world looks different when you are tired. You are looking at your life through a dirty lens. A neutral comment from your spouse, which you would normally laugh off, suddenly feels like a stinging critique. A minor setback at work, which you would normally solve in 5 minutes, feels like an insurmountable catastrophe. You are not reacting to the reality of the event. You are reacting to the fragility of your own biology. How many arguments have you had late at night that seemed absolutely vital at the time, only to wake up the next morning wondering what the fuss was about? The argument wasn't about the topic. It was about the exhaustion. You were trying to resolve a conflict with a broken brain. If you are struggling with chronic anxiety or emotional instability, the very first question you must ask is not, what is wrong with my life? But, have I slept 8 hours for the last 3 nights? If the answer is no, you are not qualified to judge the state of your life. Your emotional readings are false. You are hallucinating a crisis where there is only fatigue. But physiology goes beyond rest. It extends to the very way you hold yourself in the world. We tend to believe that the brain commands the body. I feel sad, therefore I slump my shoulders. But the circuit runs both ways. The body speaks to the brain. The brain is constantly monitoring your physical state to decide how it should feel. If you sit in a chair, collapsed, shoulders rolled forward, head down, taking shallow breaths, you're sending a physical signal to your nervous system that says, I am defeated. I am low status. I am in danger. Your brain receives this signal and obliges. It lowers your testosterone, the hormone of confidence, and raises your cortisol, the stress hormone. You begin to feel the way you look. You can actually induce a feeling of depression simply by adopting the posture of a depressed person for 10 minutes. Conversely, you can hack this loop. If you stand up, pull your shoulders back, open your chest, and take up space, you are sending a signal of power. You are telling your brain, I am ready, I am capable. This is not magic. It is mechanics. Think of the last time you were in a state of high anxiety. What was your body doing? You were likely shallow breathing, freezing your diaphragm, perhaps clenching your jaw. That physical tension is a lock that keeps the anxiety in place. You cannot think your way out of that state because the mind is looping on the danger signal the body is sending. To break the loop, you must intervene physically. You have to change the state of the vessel. A long, deep breath that expands the belly sends a direct message to the vagus nerve to downshift the nervous system from fight to rest. A brisk walk burns off the excess adrenaline that is pooled in your muscles. We must also touch upon the fuel we pour into this machine. Your gut creates about 90% of your serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for regulating mood. Let that sink in. The chemical that makes you feel happy is largely manufactured in your stomach, not your head. If you are fueling your body with processed sugar, inflammation-causing oils, and irregular spikes of caffeine, you are disrupting the factory floor of your happiness. You are trying to build a stable emotional house on a foundation of quicksand. The sugar crash is not just a dip in energy. It is a dip in emotional fortitude. When your blood sugar plummets, your patience and resilience plummet with it. You become irritable, hangry, and prone to snapping. Again, this is not a character flaw. It is a biological consequence. The modern world is designed to disconnect us from our bodies. We live in our heads. We stare at screens, motionless for hours, while our minds race at 1,000 miles per hour. This disconnect creates a state of disembodied anxiety. We have all this mental energy with no physical outlet. The human animal was designed to move. We were designed to walk miles every day, to lift, to carry, to sprint. When we deny this movement, the energy stagnates. It turns into the mental spinning of rumination. Motion creates emotion. This is a mantra you should tattoo on your subconscious. If you are stuck in a mental loop of negativity, do not sit there and try to analyze it. Get up, move, change your environment, sprint up a hill, lift something heavy, shock the system. You will be amazed at how a problem that seemed unsolvable while you were slouching on the couch suddenly seems manageable after 20 minutes of sweating. You have changed the chemistry of the container, and thus you have changed the content of the mind. We have spent the last 2 chapters inhabiting the high towers of the mind. We have dissected the ancient wiring of your survival instincts and exposed the deceptive whispers of the ego. But now we must ascend. We must leave the abstract realm of thoughts and theories and land firmly in the concrete reality of flesh, bone, and blood. We must talk about the vessel. There is a fundamental error we make when we try to solve our emotional problems. We treat them as purely psychological events. When we feel depressed, we search for the reason in our life story. We ask, why am I sad? Is it my job? Is it my relationship? Is it my childhood trauma? We treat the mind as a floating entity, separate from the biological machine that powers it. This is a dangerous delusion. You are not a ghost in a machine. You are the machine itself. And often, the despair you feel is not a spiritual crisis. It is not a sign that your life is falling apart. It is simply a sign that your machinery is running on fumes. Imagine you are driving a high-performance sports car. Suddenly, the engine starts to sputter, the steering becomes sluggish, and the check engine light flashes red. You wouldn't pull over and start psychoanalyzing the car. You wouldn't ask the car if it had a difficult relationship with its father. You wouldn't try to think positive thoughts to make the engine run smoother. You would check the fuel. You would check the oil. You would check the tires. Yet, when our own engines sputter, when we feel irritable, anxious, or flat, we immediately jump to complex psychological explanations while ignoring the fuel and the oil. We try to solve a biological problem with a philosophical solution. The foundation of your emotional reality is not your philosophy. It is your physiology. And the cornerstone of that physiology is sleep. In our hyperproductive, hustle culture society, sleep has been rebranded as a weakness. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. I'll sleep when I'm dead, we say, fueled by caffeine and ambition. But this deprivation comes with a terrifying emotional price tag. Sleep is not merely a time when the body shuts down. It is a time when the brain washes itself. During deep sleep, the glymphatic system opens up and flushes out the metabolic waste that accumulates during the day. Essentially, the neurochemical trash. When you deny yourself this process, you are waking up with a brain full of toxic debris. But the impact is more specific than just feeling tired. Sleep deprivation targets the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for the fight or flight response. When you are well rested, the prefrontal cortex, the logical, adult part of your brain, keeps a firm hand on the amygdala. It says, calm down, that's not a threat. But when you are sleep deprived, that connection is severed. The prefrontal cortex goes offline, and the amygdala runs wild. This means that your interpretation of reality changes. This is crucial. The world looks different when you are tired. You are looking at your life through a dirty lens. A neutral comment from your spouse, which you would normally laugh off, suddenly feels like a stinging critique. A minor setback at work, which you would normally solve in 5 minutes, feels like an insurmountable catastrophe. You are not reacting to the reality of the event. You are reacting to the fragility of your own biology. How many arguments have you had late at night that seemed absolutely vital at the time, only to wake up the next morning wondering what the fuss was about? The argument wasn't about the topic. It was about the exhaustion. You were trying to resolve a conflict with a broken brain. If you are struggling with chronic anxiety or emotional instability, the very first question you must ask is not, what is wrong with my life, but, have I slept 8 hours for the last 3 nights? If the answer is no, you're not qualified to judge the state of your life. Your emotional readings are false. You are hallucinating a crisis where there is only fatigue. But physiology goes beyond rest. It extends to the very way you hold yourself in the world. We tend to believe that the brain commands the body. I feel sad, therefore I slump my shoulders. But the circuit runs both ways. The body speaks to the brain. The brain is constantly monitoring your physical state to decide how it should feel. If you sit in a chair collapsed, shoulders rolled forward, head down, taking shallow breaths, you're sending a physical signal to your nervous system that says, I am defeated. I am low status. I am in danger. Your brain receives this signal and obliges. It lowers your testosterone, the hormone of confidence, and raises your cortisol, the stress hormone. You begin to feel the way you look. You can actually induce a feeling of depression simply by adopting the posture of a depressed person for 10 minutes. Conversely, you can hack this loop. This chapter is the low-hanging fruit of emotional mastery. Rewiring your childhood trauma is hard work. It takes years. Changing your sleep schedule, your diet, and your posture is immediate. It is tangible. It is the lever you can pull today. Stop treating your body like a donkey that carries your head around. It is the temple where your spirit resides. If the windows are dirty, you cannot see the sun. If the walls are shaking, you cannot find peace. Before you try to master your thoughts, master your sleep. Before you try to conquer your ego, conquer your breath. Respect biology. If you treat the animal of your body with care, the human of your mind will follow. Now that we have stabilized the vessel, we can turn our attention to the specific spells we cast upon ourselves. We can look at the software that runs on this machine. In the next chapter, we will examine the feedback loop of thoughts and words, and how the language you use creates the reality you inhabit. You have prepared the soil. Now let us look at the seeds. Rewiring your childhood trauma is hard work. It takes years. Changing your sleep schedule, your diet, and your posture is immediate. It is tangible. It is a lever you can pull today. Stop treating your body like a donkey that carries your head around. It is the temple where your spirit resides. If the windows are dirty, you cannot see the sun. If the walls are shaking, you cannot find peace. Before you try to master your thoughts, master your sleep. Before you try to conquer your ego, conquer your breath. Respect biology. If you treat the animal of your body with care, the human of your mind will follow. Now that we have stabilized the vessel, we can turn our attention to the specific spells we cast upon ourselves. We can look at the software that runs on this machine. In the next chapter, we will examine the feedback loop of thoughts and words, and how the language you use creates the reality you inhabit. You're prepared the soil. Now let us look at the seeds. We like to believe that we are the undisputed captains of our own souls. We imagine that our thoughts, feelings, and moods are generated spontaneously from within, immune to the world outside. We view ourselves as sealed vessels, navigating the ocean of life, but remaining dry on the inside. This is a comforting illusion, but it is entirely false. The truth is far more permeable. You are not a sealed vessel. You are a sponge. You are constantly, silently, and unconsciously absorbing the quality of the atmosphere around you. You are in a ceaseless dialogue with your environment, and more often than not, the environment is winning. This chapter is about the invisible architect, the external forces that design your internal reality. We often wonder why, despite our best efforts to think positively or meditate, we still feel scattered, anxious, or heavy. We look for the answer in our psychology, but the answer is often sitting right in front of us, piled on the coffee table, blaring from the television, or humming in the background noise of our city. We are trying to grow an orchid in the middle of a desert storm and blaming the seed for not blooming. Let's begin with the most immediate layer of your environment, the physical space you inhabit. Look around you right now. What do you see? Is your space a sanctuary of order and clarity, or is it a museum of unfinished business? There is a direct neurological link between the clutter in your visual field and the clutter in your mind. Every object in your room is sending you a silent message. The pile of laundry in the corner is not just fabric. It is a signal that says, you are behind. You are lazy. You have work to do. The stack of unread mail on the counter is not just paper. It is a signal of looming responsibility and potential bad news. When you live in a chaotic environment, your brain is forced to process a massive amount of visual stimuli. It is constantly scanning the mess, tagging objects, and registering the to-do list associated with them. This creates a low-level background hum of cortisol. It is a silent scream that never stops. You might not consciously notice it anymore. You become nose-blind to the chaos, but your nervous system feels it. You are essentially living in a state of chronic, low-grade emergency. You are trying to find peace in a war zone of your own making. Imagine walking into a luxury hotel room. What is the immediate sensation? A deep exhale. The shoulders drop. Why? It is not just the fancy sheets. It is the absence of noise. There are no piles of bills, no broken toys, no reminders of past failures or future obligations. There is only space. In that space, the mind can finally unclench. Now, imagine walking back into a cluttered, dark, dirty apartment. The chest tightens. The mind speeds up. The environment is physically assaulting your peace. We often say, I'll clean my room when I feel better. But the causality is backward. You will feel better when you clean your room by bringing order to your external world. You are performing a ritual of ordering your internal world. You are telling your subconscious, I am in control. I respect myself. I deserve beauty. But the visual landscape is only one wall of the room. We must also look at the auditory diet. Sound is a drug. It bypasses the logical brain and goes straight to the emotional centers. A minor chord on a piano can induce sadness in seconds, even if you just won the lottery. A siren can trigger panic, even if you are safe in bed. Yet, most of us consume sound indiscriminately. We leave the news running in the background, letting the rhythmic cadence of disaster seep into our pores. We work in environments filled with the jarring sounds of traffic, construction, or other people's stress. Think of your ears as a mouth. You wouldn't eat garbage, yet you let garbage enter your ears all day long. The most powerful tool you have in this arena is music. Music is emotional alchemy. It is the only legal performance-enhancing drug that can instantly shift your state. If you're feeling sluggish and unmotivated, and you put on a track with a driving beat and an aggressive tempo, your heart rate will literally synchronize with the rhythm. Your physiology will shift. You cannot remain in a low-energy state when high-energy frequencies are vibrating through your bones. Conversely, if you are anxious and spinning, listening to chaotic or aggressive music will only amplify the storm. You need to curate your sonic landscape with the precision of a pharmacist mixing a prescription. You can build playlists for specific emotional outcomes, a playlist for focus, a playlist for confidence, a playlist for releasing grief. When you use music intentionally, you stop being a victim of the silence or the noise, and you become the DJ of your own mood. You are setting the soundtrack for the movie of your life. If the scene is a romantic dinner, you don't play death metal. If the scene is a workout, you don't play a lullaby. Yet, in the movie of our daily lives, we often let the soundtrack be determined by the random shuffle of the world. Now, we must confront the most insidious environmental toxin of the modern age, the digital feed. If your physical room is the house you live in, your phone is the window through which you view the world. And for most of us, that window looks out onto a hellscape. The business model of the news and social media industries is predicated on one thing: capturing your attention. And the easiest way to capture human attention is to trigger the survival mechanism we discussed in Chapter 1. Fear sells, outrage sells, conflict sells, peace does not. So, when you wake up in the morning and immediately scroll through your feed, you are voluntarily hooking yourself up to an four-drip of anxiety. You are flooding your brain with images of war, economic collapse, political strife, and the curated perfection of other people's lives. You are starting your day by drinking a cup of poison. You are telling your brain, the world is dangerous, people are angry, and I am inadequate. Is it any wonder, then, that you feel a vague sense of dread before you've even brushed your teeth? This is emotional diabetes. Just as a diet high in processed sugar ruins your physical health, a diet high in processed digital outrage ruins your emotional health. You become sensitized to negativity and desensitized to joy. You lose the ability to focus on the slow, quiet beauty of your actual life because your brain has been hijacked by the fast, loud, neon horror of the screen. You must become a ruthless gatekeeper of your attention. You must curate your digital environment even more strictly than your physical one. Unfollow the accounts that make you feel angry or inadequate. Turn off the breaking news alerts. There is very little breaking news that actually impacts your immediate life or that you could do anything about. It is mostly noise designed to keep you clicking. Reclaiming your morning from the screen is perhaps the single most effective intervention for emotional stability. Give yourself the gift of waking up in your own life, not in the internet's hallucination of the world. Finally, we must touch upon the social environment. This is not just about deep relationships, which we will discuss later, but about the atmospheric pressure of the people you share space with. Emotions are contagious. This is a biological fact known as limbic resonance. If you're sitting in a room with a person who is seething with suppressed anger, even if they don't say a word, your blood pressure will rise. You will feel on edge. Their nervous system is broadcasting a signal, and your nervous system is picking it up. If you surround yourself with people who are cynical, defeated, and constantly complaining, you will eventually drown in their gravity. You cannot maintain a high vibration in a room full of energy vampires. It requires too much fuel. You will spend all your energy just trying to stay afloat, with none left to swim forward. Conversely, if you place yourself in the orbit of people who are optimistic, driven, and kind, you will feel a natural lift. You will draft behind their energy like a cyclist in a peloton. This doesn't mean you must cut off everyone who is struggling. Compassion is vital. But you must distinguish between those who are going through a hard time and looking for support, and those who are addicted to their own misery and looking for an audience. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but you are also the average of the 5 environments you spend the most time in. If your office is toxic, your home is messy, your digital feed is tragic, and your friends are cynical, no amount of positive thinking will save you. You are being outvoted by your environment 4-1. The transformation begins with a decision to respect your own receptivity. It begins with the realization that everything matters. The color of your walls matters. The lighting in your room matters. Harsh fluorescent light induces stress. Warm, soft light induces calm. The smell of your home matters. The notifications on your phone matter. Start small. Choose one corner of your life to reclaim. Maybe it is your car. Clean it out. Turn off the angry talk radio. Put on an audiobook or music that lifts your spirit. Make that small metal box a sanctuary on wheels. Or maybe it is your bedroom. Remove the television. Remove the piles of clothes. Make it a space dedicated solely to rest and intimacy. When you change the space, you change the behavior that happens in the space. You are the architect. Up until now, you may have been a passive inhabitant, letting the winds of chaos blow through your windows and scatter your papers. But now you can close the windows. You can sweep the floor. You can choose the music. You can decide that your eyes deserve to see beauty, your ears deserve to hear harmony, and your mind deserves to be fed truth rather than hysteria. The environment is the invisible architect because it works in the background, subtly shaping your posture, your breath, and your thoughts without you ever noticing. But once you make it visible, once you see the strings, you can take the puppet master's hands off your life. You can design a world that makes it easy to be the person you want to be. You can design a world where happiness is not a struggle against current, but a natural flow downstream. As we clear the physical and digital clutter, we make space. But space for what? Space for the emotions we have been repressing to finally surface. We have used the noise, the clutter, and the busyness to distract ourselves from the pain we carry. When the room is quiet, the ghosts speak. In the next chapter, we will learn how to face what comes up in the silence. We will learn the art of letting go. We arrive now at the hardest truth of the emotional journey. We have spoke about how the brain creates fear, how the ego amplifies it, and how the environment triggers it. But what do we do with the emotion that is already here? What do we do with the grief that has been sitting in the pit of the stomach for 10 years? What do we do with the anger that flares up every time we think of that one person? Most of us have been taught two ways to handle difficult emotions: suppress them or express them. Suppression is the path of the stoic soldier. Push it down, grit your teeth, and march on. Expression is the path of the volcano. Scream, shout, punch a pillow, and vent. We bounce between these two extremes, hoping one of them will bring peace. But you have likely noticed that neither really works. When you suppress an emotion, you are not destroying it. You are burying it alive. Imagine you are in a swimming pool holding a large, air-filled beach ball. You try to push it underwater. It takes effort. You have to tense your arms, your shoulders, and your back to keep it submerged. As long as you hold it down, the surface of the water looks calm. But underneath, there is a constant, exhausting struggle. This is suppression. You are using your vital life energy to hold down your past. The moment you get tired or distracted or weak, the ball shoots up to the surface with violent force. This is why we have breakdowns. A breakdown is simply the moment your arms get too tired to hold the ball down any longer. On the other hand, when you express an emotion, when you rant, rave, or replay the story, you are often just reinflating the ball. You are giving emotion more air, more significance, and more momentum. You are solidifying the neural pathways of pain. There is a third way. It is the path of least resistance, yet it is the path that requires the most courage. It is the art of letting go. Letting go is a phrase that has been abused by pop psychology until it has lost its meaning. It sounds like a dismissal. Just let it go, people say, as if you can simply drop a lifetime of trauma like a used tissue. But true letting go is not an intellectual decision. To understand this, pick up a pen or a small object. Hold it tight in your fist. Squeeze it. Feel the tension in your forearm. This clenching is what you are doing to your emotions. You are holding on to your anger because it makes you feel safe. You are holding on to your sadness because it feels like a way to honor what you lost. Now, simply open your hand. Turn your palm to the floor and uncurl your fingers. The object falls. You didn't do anything to make it fall. You simply stopped holding it. The gravity of nature took over. Emotional release works the same way. Emotions want to move. The word emotion comes from the Latin movere, meaning energy and motion. An emotion is designed to rise, peak, and pass through you like a wave. It only becomes a problem when we freeze it. We freeze it by resisting it. I shouldn't feel this, or by identifying with it. This feeling is me. So, How do we open a hand? The process begins with surrender. This is a terrifying word for the ego. To the ego, surrender means defeat. It means losing the war. But in the realm of emotions, surrender is the ultimate victory. It means surrendering the resistance to the feeling. Let's walk through the mechanics of a release. Imagine a wave of anxiety hits you. Your chest tightens. Your mind starts racing. The instinct is to fight it, to try to distract yourself, or to analyze why it's happening so you can fix it. Instead, you do the opposite. You stop. You sit down. You turn your attention inward, away from the thoughts, and directly into the physical sensation in your body. Where is the anxiety? Is it a knot in the stomach? A heat in the throat? A pressure behind the eyes? You locate the sensation, and then you give it permission to be there. You say to the feeling, implicitly or explicitly, you are allowed to exist. You open the door of your heart and invite the monster in for tea. You treat the feeling not as an enemy invader, but as a guest. This creates a paradox that is the secret of emotional mastery. What you resist persists. What you accept dissolves. When you stop fighting the anxiety, when you look at it with curiosity and allow it to burn as hot as it wants, you cut the fuel line. The fuel of an emotion is your resistance to it. Without your resistance, the emotion has a limited lifespan. It will flare up, it will peak, and then inevitably it will begin to fade. It will run out of energy. The chemical flush in your blood can only last about 90 seconds unless you re-stimulate it with a thought. If you just stay with a sensation, purely the physical sensation, not the story about the sensation, it will pass through you. But there is a deeper layer to the anchor. Often, we are not just holding on to a feeling. We are holding on to a weight. We are waiting for the past to change. We are waiting for an apology that will never come. We are waiting for our parents to be the parents we wanted them to be. We are waiting for the world to acknowledge our pain. This waiting is the anchor. It keeps our ship stuck in the harbor of the past, unable to sail into the future. Letting go means realizing that the wait is over. No one is coming to fix it. The apology is not coming. The past is carved in stone. It cannot be edited. This realization brings a wave of grief. We have to grieve the hope that things could have been different. But on the other side of that grief is freedom. When you accept that the past is dead, you are finally free to live in the living present. Consider the story of Elena. Elena was betrayed by a business partner 5 years ago. She lost money, but more than that, she lost her trust. For 5 years, she carried a burning coal of resentment in her chest. She thought about him every day. She rehearsed arguments in the shower. She thought her anger was punishing him, but he was living his life, completely unaware of her internal state. The only person being burned by the coal was Elena. One day, Elena realized the transaction was costing her more than money. It was costing her life. She sat down and practiced a release. She felt the anger. She let it rage. She screamed into a pillow not to vent, but to empty. And then she asked herself the crucial question. Would I rather be right, or would I rather be free? The ego screamed, be right. He owes you. But her soul whispered, be free. She decided to drop the rope. She stopped expecting justice. She stopped demanding the universe balance the scales. She accepted the loss. And in that acceptance, the heaviness evaporated. The energy that she had been using to hate him was suddenly available to love herself. She started a new business. She flourished. The letting go was not a favor she did for him. It was a rescue mission she performed for herself. There is a specific technique you can use in the heat of the moment. It is called the could I, would I, when method. When you feel a sticky emotion, ask yourself 3 questions. 1, can I let this go? Is it physically possible to drop this rock? Yes. 2, would I let this go? Do I want to be free more than I want to suffer? Yes. 3, when? The only time you can ever do anything is now. Sometimes the answer to would I is no. Sometimes we want to hold on to the anger a little longer. That is okay. Be honest about it. Don't force a fake release. Just say, right now, I choose to hold on to this anger. Even that simple admission of choice moves you from victim to master. You are no longer being angered. You are choosing anger. That shift in agency is the beginning of the end of suffering. The art of letting go is a daily hygiene. It is not something you do once and finish. You accumulate emotional dust and dirt every day just by living. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Dust. A friend forgets your birthday. Dirt. A project fails. Mud. If you do not shower emotionally, this grime builds up until you are caked in a layer of cynicism and heaviness. You must learn to wash your hands of the day. Every night, before you sleep, practice a release review. Scan your day. Notice where you felt tension. Notice where you felt small. And then, consciously, breathe into those moments and breathe them out. Visualize the events of the day dissolving into smoke. Give the day back to the universe. It is done. You cannot carry today into tomorrow, or you will never truly see tomorrow. You will only see a projection of yesterday. As you become lighter, you will notice a strange thing happening. You become more effective. A boxer who is tense and angry is slow and predictable. A boxer who is loose, relaxed, and present is deadly. When you let go of the fear of failure, you can take bigger risks. When you let go of the need for approval, you can speak your truth. The man who has nothing to lose is the most powerful man in the room because he cannot be manipulated. The anchor has been lifted. The ship is drifting away from the dark docks of the past. You are moving into open water. But now that the old beliefs and old pains are gone, there is a vacuum. The mind abhors a vacuum. If we do not plant a garden, weeds will grow. We must now turn to the work of cultivation. We must install a new operating system to replace the one we just deleted. In the next chapter, we will learn how to condition the mind, how to use the power of neuroplasticity to build a brain that defaults to strength, gratitude, and resilience. We have cleared the field. Now let us plant the corn. We have reached a pivotal moment in our journey. In the previous chapter, we learned the art of excavation. We learned how to dig up the buried stones of trauma and how to cut the cords of attachment that bound us to a painful past. We have created space. But space, in nature, is a dangerous thing. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you clear a plot of land of weeds but do not plant flowers, the weeds will return, and they will return with a vengeance. They will reclaim the territory simply because they are the native species of your unmanaged mind. It is not enough to simply let go of the negative. You must aggressively, consciously, and repeatedly install the positive. You must build a new operating system. This process is what we call conditioning. The word might make you think of Pavlov's dog salivating at the sound of a bell, and in a way, the comparison is apartment. You are a biological entity that responds to stimuli. For years, perhaps decades, you have conditioned yourself to respond to stress with anxiety, to uncertainty with fear, and to failure with shame. You have practiced these reactions thousands of times. They are not just thoughts anymore. They are superhighways in your brain. To understand the magnitude of the task ahead, you must understand the concept of neuroplasticity. For a long time, scientists believed that the adult brain was fixed, that once you reach a certain age, your neural wiring was set in concrete. We now know this is false. The brain is not concrete. It is clay. It is constantly reshaping itself based on what you think, feel, and do. Every time you think a thought, a specific pattern of neurons fires together. If you think that thought once, it is like a spiderweb, fragile and easily broken. But if you think it twice, the connection strengthens. If you think it 1,000 times, the connection becomes wrapped in a substance called myelin. Myelin is insulation. It turns a dirt road into a high-speed fiber optic cable. Most people have a fiber optic cable dedicated to the thought, I am not good enough. This thought travels at the speed of light, effortless and automatic. Meanwhile, the thought, I am capable and worthy, is a faint trail through a dense jungle that hasn't been walked in years. When you are under stress, which path will the electrical signal of your brain take? It will take the path of least resistance. It will take the highway. This is why positive thinking often fails in the heat of the moment. You are trying to force a signal down an overgrown path, while a 12-lane highway is beckoning right next to it. The work of conditioning is the work of construction. We are going to pave a new highway, and we are going to do it through the brute force of repetition and the alchemy of emotion. The first tool in your construction kit is visualization. But I am not talking about the daydreaming you do while staring out the window. I am talking about visualization as a flight simulator for the mind. The brain, for all its sophistication, has a major flaw. It cannot distinguish between a vivid imagination and actual reality. If you hook someone up to an MRI scanner and ask them to look at a specific object, a certain part of their brain lights up. If you then ask them to close their eyes and imagine looking at that same object, the exact same part of the brain lights up. To the neurons, the event is real. This means you can practice being the person you want to be without leaving your chair. You can rehearse emotional mastery. Imagine a situation that triggers you, perhaps a confrontation with a difficult family member. Close your eyes and see it in high definition. See their face, hear their voice, feel the familiar heat of anger rising in your chest. But then, in the safety of your simulation, choose a different response. See yourself breathing. See yourself smiling calmly. See yourself responding with grace rather than venom. Feel the sense of pride that comes from that control. If you do this once, it is a nice idea. If you do this 50 times, you are physically rewiring your brain. You are laying down the tracks for a new reaction. When the real confrontation happens, your brain will recognize a pattern. It will say, "Wait, I know this scenario." We don't explode anymore, we breathe. You have pre-programmed the victory. This is how elite athletes operate. They don't just hope to win. They have won the race 1,000 times in their mind before their feet ever touch the track. The second tool is the affirmation, but we must strip this word of its new age fluff. Standing in front of a mirror and mumbling, "I am happy," while you feel miserable is a waste of time. In fact, it is counterproductive because your internal bullshit detector goes off. Your subconscious mind screams, "No, you're not," and the conflict creates more stress. For an affirmation to work, it must be an incantation. It must involve the body and the voice. It must have emotional weight. Remember, emotion is a glue that makes memories stick. A thought without emotion is like a dry leaf. It blows away in the wind. A thought with emotion is a brand. It burns a mark. When you state a new belief, "I am disciplined, I am unstoppable, I am at peace," you must generate the feeling of that state in your body. You must shout it, whisper it with intensity, or write it with force. You must engage your physiology. Think of it like acting. You are method acting the role of your future self until the role becomes a reality. You are not lying to yourself. You are broadcasting command. You are telling your reticular activating system what to look for. You are telling your nervous system what the new baseline is. But be warned, the old operating system will not go down without a fight. This is a crucial phase that most people are unprepared for. It is called the extinction burst. When you stop feeding a habit, when you stop indulging in your usual self-pity or your usual anxiety, the brain panics. It thinks something is wrong. Why aren't we worrying? It asks. We always worry at 3 a.m. It keeps us safe. So the brain ramps up the signal. It throws a tantrum. You might decide to start a new routine of gratitude, and suddenly you feel more depressed than ever. You might decide to stop being angry, and suddenly you are filled with rage. This is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are winning. It is a dying gasp of the old neural pathway, screaming for resources. It is a withdrawal symptom of an addiction to your own suffering. If you push through this burst, if you hold a line and refuse to engage with the old pattern, the fever breaks. The old highway begins to crack and fade from lack of use. The weeds start to grow over the asphalt of your trauma. And the new path, the path of resilience and peace, begins to widen. This is not a glamorous process. It is the blue-collar work of the soul. It requires showing up every single day. You cannot go to the emotional gym once, lift a heavy weight, and expect to be strong for the rest of your life. You have to lift the weight every day. You have to guard the gates of your mind with a relentless vigilance. Every time a negative thought tries to sneak in, you must catch it, label it, and replace it. "I am not good enough" becomes "I am in the process of learning." "This is a disaster" becomes "this is a challenge." Consistency is the key. A drop of water cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. You are that drop of water. You are eroding the stone of your old self, drop by drop, thought by thought, day by day. As you continue this work, you will notice a shift. The new reactions will start to become automatic. One day, something will go wrong, and instead of panicking, you will feel a strange, cool calm wash over you. You will look around and realize, I didn't try to be calm. I just was calm. That is the moment of graduation. That is the moment the software has been successfully installed. But conditioning is only half the battle. We have changed the wiring, but we must also change the lens. We must learn to look at the raw data of reality, the events, the tragedies, the successes, and interpret them in a way that serves us. For it is not the events of our lives that shape us, but the meaning we assign to them. In the next chapter, we will explore the power of interpretation and how two people can live the exact same life, but experience two completely different worlds. The story you tell is the life you live. Let us learn to tell a better story. We have reached the end of the pages, but we have only just arrived at the beginning of the work. You have traveled a great distance in this short time. You have descended into the ancient caverns of your evolutionary history and seen the survival mechanism for what it is, a frightened sentry, not a wise king. You have shown a light on the ego and watched its shadows retreat. You have learned that your body is the vessel that dictates the weather of your mind, and you have discovered the magical power of the words you speak and the environment you inhabit. You have learned to let go of the anchor and to pave new highways in the wilderness of your brain. But now, as we prepare to part ways, I must warn you of one final trap. It is perhaps the most dangerous trap of all, precisely because it looks like a victory. It is the trap of the finished product. There is a part of you that hopes that because you have listened to this book, because you have understood these concepts intellectually, the war is over. You hope that you have now fixed yourself. You hope that from this day forward, you will be a Zen master, floating through life in a bubble of perpetual peace, never feeling anger, never feeling fear, never feeling the crushing weight of sadness. Let me shatter that illusion right now. If you expect to be perfect, you are setting yourself up for the greatest failure of all. You will fall. You will stumble. You will have days, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps next week, where the old programming takes over. You will lose your temper at a traffic light. You will spiral into anxiety over an email. You will lie in bed at 3 a.m., paralyzed by the fear that you are not enough. And when this happens, the ego will rush back in with a sneer. It will say, see, it didn't work. You haven't changed. You are still the same broken person you always were. Do not listen to that voice. Mastery is not the absence of failure. Mastery is the speed of correction. The amateur gets knocked down and stays down, convinced the fight is lost. The master gets knocked down, notices they're on the floor, and stands back up. The difference is not in the falling. The difference is in recovery. Before this journey, when you fell into a depression or a rage, you might have stayed there for weeks. You might have believed that the emotion was a truth. Now, you have the tools to recognize the fall. You can catch yourself in 10 minutes instead of 10 days. You can say, I am in a survival loop. My body is tired. My ego is threatened. This is not me. This is the unending practice. Emotional mastery is not a diploma you hang on the wall. It is a daily hygiene. You do not brush your teeth once and declare your mouth permanently clean. You brush them every day because bacteria accumulates every day. The world is full of emotional bacteria, stress, negativity, noise, trauma. You must scrub your soul every single day. You must guard the gates of your mind every single morning. You must release the anchor every single night. Think of your emotions like a garden. You have cleared the weeds and planted new seeds of gratitude and resilience. But the forest is always waiting at the edge of the garden. If you stop tending to the soil, if you stop watering the flowers, the forest will reclaim the land. The weeds of negativity do not need encouragement to grow. They are the default state of nature. The flowers of happiness require care. They require intention. There will be times when the work feels heavy. There will be times when you just want to succumb to the numbness or the distraction of a screen. In those moments, remember why you started. Remember the cost of the old way. Remember that the pain of discipline is ounces, but the pain of regret is tons. Do you want to reach the end of your life and realize you spent 80 years locked in a prison cell that wasn't even locked? Do you want to realize that you spent your one precious existence reacting rather than creating? You are now the architect of your own experience. This is a terrifying responsibility, but it is also the ultimate freedom. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. No one can steal your peace unless you hand them the keys. The external world, the economy, the politics, the opinions of others will always be chaotic. You cannot calm the ocean, but you can learn to sail. You can build a boat so sturdy that the size of the waves no longer matters. As you step back into your life, look at the people around you with new eyes. See them not as enemies or obstacles, but as fellow travelers trapped in their own survival mechanisms. When someone is rude to you, see the fear behind their aggression. When someone is arrogant, see the insecurity behind their mask. When you understand the machinery of human emotion, you can replace judgment with compassion. And in that compassion, you will find a freedom that anger could never give you. But mostly, have compassion for yourself. Be patient with your rewiring. You are undoing evolution. You are rewriting history. It takes time. Celebrate the small victories. Celebrate the moment you almost snapped but took a breath instead. Celebrate the moment you felt the shadow of sadness but didn't invite it in for dinner. These microscopic victories are the bricks that build a cathedral of a great life. The book is closing, but your story is just opening. You have the map. You have the compass. You have the tools. The rest is up to you. Go now. Step out of the survival trap and into the light of your own potential. The world is waiting for the version of you that is not ruled by fear. The world is waiting for the version of you that is awake. Be the master. Be the observer. Be the sky, not the clouds. The journey continues, and you are ready.